Welcome, welcome everyone to this episode of the Tiny Fit Diva podcast. I am thrilled to introduce you today to Kasia Kines. She is a doctor of clinical nutrition, the CEO of Holistic Nutrition Naturally, and EBV Educational Institute. She is board certified nutrition specialist, certified nutritionist licensed by the Washington State with 2 master's degrees, including a master's in clinical nutrition from the prestigious Bastyr University. She is the author of the Amazon bestseller, The Epstein-Barr Virus Solution, which we will be talking a lot about today. And she also certifies practitioners in her EBV clinician training program. Finally, she runs an online EBV recovery masterclass, and she lives in Seattle with her family. So welcome, Kasia. I am super pumped. I have so many questions. Let me just tell you. And before we started recording, I think we must be related because she is from Poland and my mom is 50% Polish. So we were talking about Europe a little bit.
Special connection, yes.
Yes. So, all right. So we met last year at Mindshare, which was just an incredible opportunity for me. I met so many amazing, smart people. And when I think about how God orchestrates everything, I just feel like he puts certain people in your life at certain times and you're so knowledgeable. And turns out this year I needed to know about EBV. And there you were in the Mindshare community, and I knew that you were an expert because you had just written this amazing book, The Epstein-Barr Virus Solution. So I reached out, and Kasia told me to get a lab test done. So I got a lab test done, and so if you guys that listen to the podcast regularly or watch me on social media know that I have Hodgkins Lymphoma. Well, doing a little bit of research, Epstein-Barr virus can contribute to the condition of getting Hodgkins. It can be like a precursor to getting it. So I wanted to look, I was really curious, and I was like, well, I wonder if I have it because I started having fatigue back in 2012. Turns out, if I'm reading this right, not only did I have it, but I also, when I retested in March, had a reactivation, which would completely make sense because I was stressed out of my mind just getting the cancer diagnosis. So I got the book and I got Kasia on the podcast, and we're going to go through just so many questions. So welcome. I'm so happy to have you.
I am so thrilled to be. Let me ask you a question. Are you wearing a Fitbit? Is that
I am wearing a Fitbit. Oh no, are you going to tell me the EMF exposure?
Consider.
No, don't tell me that. I don't love my EMFs. I love my Fitbit though. All right. So is there a better solution or just don't wear one?
It's a different story, but yeah, consider. Think
about
All
right. It. I think someone else had asked me about that too. They were like, I'm going to have to research the EMF exposure of Fitbits. That is a question on here because we're going to talk about triggers. I'm really curious to see what you have to say about some of those things, specifically about EMF. All right, so let's just start with the basics because I think the only thing people ever really associate EBV with is mono. So can you explain what is EBV?
All right. Epstein-Barr virus produces mono. And so the belief was in medical literature that, and it's still believed among doctors, and that's what you will hear, that mono is the initial infection. It may be, it may not be. Okay, but the medical community feels, okay, mono is the first time you have infection from this virus, and it's going to last a few weeks. You're going to be flat on your bed. You're going to have terrible fatigue. It's going to feel like the worst flu ever. And then you're going to just go home, rest, get rid of it. After a few weeks, you're on your feet and your life resumes. That's the kind of surface scenario, and this is what everybody thinks. And it's not exactly correct because, first of all, you can be born with the virus and you can have a little sniffles, a little cold as an infant, and it could be EBV, but it can be so inconsequential that everybody misses it. So that may have been your initial introduction, not necessarily the mono. The mono may not be the first infection. Oftentimes it is, but it may not be. But also, there's something called mononucleosis, a chronic mononucleosis syndrome. That's a medical term. That's when that mono doesn't turn off. Or it becomes chronic. And when you look at research, it's very, very parallel to chronic fatigue syndrome. basically. And for for most people, chronic EBV will be chronic fatigue. The fatigue, the brain fog, oftentimes involvements, the lymph nodes, larynx, pharynx, throat. So it just depends. It depends on presentation, because eventually, if you have years of this trajectory and nobody catches it, then eventually EBV can carve into your immunity, and it can trigger autoimmune disorders in different ways. There's different physiological ways it can do it. No other virus can do that. And it could be diabetes type 1, it could be Hashimoto's, it could be lupus, that's classic. It could be celiac even, we have research on that. Juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, for example. It is just, the list goes on and on. It can be encephalitis even, inflammation of the brain. It can go into ulceration, even genital ulcers. It just tentacles go all over. So, and eventually, in some people, if there's a lot of years behind it, it is oncogenic. So it can create the environment for cancer. Now, your cancer is well established that it can be caused by the virus. 10% of stomach cancer is caused by this virus. But now we're looking into even research into breast cancer and into colorectal cancer. So these are more common types of cancer in the States. So, and we're seeing association, like in breast cancer. There's quite a lot of evidence that the breast cancer is more aggressive if there's more EBV in the tissues. Like there's good evidence, and we need to dig a little deeper. So it's yes, in a healthy person who doesn't have compromised immune system where everything is working, if you develop mono, maybe you won't develop mono, first of all, because you have a lot of support, your body's warding it off. But if you develop mono, you can go chronic. And the profile of people that go chronic, in my experience, is pretty amazing. It's type A personality, overachievers, highly sensitive individuals. There's a name, highly sensitive individuals. These are people who have a higher sensitivity to energy fields, to energies of other people. So they are more sensitive to EMF. They are more sensitive to dark energies. They may be more sensitive to, being in the mall, exposed to all the cell phones and the fluorescent light. They may get really tired in spaces like that. They are not forgiving of themselves. They are perfectionists. Everything has to be great. So they overachieve, they overwork, they overstress, they overdo. If they get on a diet, they have to be perfect. They overdo that too. So it's like not giving yourself permission to let go, relax, and just be present. That's the population that's the population where the mono maybe will not turn off, because the stress of being so wired is huge on the body. I think you just
described my life, so. For anyone out there wondering, I fit that exactly.
Yes, I actually have a group of 30. I call my students in the program, I call them EBV heroes. For a reason, but I have 30 students right now in my group, in my program, and we talk about it all the time, and we laugh about it. They are learning like babies. Like, I actually have to give myself permission to slow down, to just relax, to trust, not to run, to take the time, to notice the flowers. I don't have to run anymore. I don't have to be the best. I am enough. I am loved. I'm supported. I'm perfect as I am. I don't have to do anything else. It really is like, it's really, we're so conditioned. We have so many traumas and so many belief systems that we inherited and we developed over the course of our life. And that's a perfect storm, a perfect profile for continued reactivation of the virus. And you become very sticky and very, like, it's a great breeding ground for the virus, unfortunately. Yes. So it's a very interesting very interesting journey for me to learn all this, observe all this, and then that's my patient population too.
So why? Because first of all, when I ordered this book, I'm gonna be honest, I thought, okay, it's gonna be just like any other diet book. It's gonna be like, half an inch thick, and it's gonna give you these basic life principles, right? That are the same as everybody else. I get this thing. It is like 2 full inches. It's like a college textbook on everything you need to know. She is not bullshitting. She did her research. There's so much information in this. It's mind-blowing. It's literally, everything you need to know about the history of the virus, exactly what it is, how it affects your immune system, how it, is a precursor to all these diseases. And then, of course, you have the last half of the book is talking about what to do about it. So just want to let people know if you've bought like 20 books from different gurus, this is going to stand out. Okay. You should get this book. If you have any history of fatigue, any history of EBV or mono, you need to get it. But let's talk about like why, because this is a compilation. This is so much research that's out there that you pulled together. I mean, it's not like it's a secret. Why is this not something that doctors are regularly recognizing and testing for?
Well, why didn't they know about celiac decades ago? Why did they have to discover SIBO? And why did they have to discover Hashimoto's later? These are processes in medicine that takes years, decades sometimes to be established. And so, this is just where we need to evolve. Doctors are very busy. They have a specific training. Just like with thyroid, they still don't test antibodies. They still only test the tip of the iceberg. And this is a disservice to women because much of the thyroid problem is actually Hashimoto's. And then very big chunk of Hashimoto's is caused by EBV. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, I don't know how many years it will take for a traditional medical practice to acknowledge this virus. The belief is still that you get a mono, you get over it, and you have past exposure. You don't have to test because everybody has antibodies, so they're irrelevant. And they misinterpret the labs because it's an old school, which is not in agreement with the research that I found. That research is in the book. There is a lab chapter. So it's just a hot mess, and we're not going to wait for this to change. We have to be the agents of change. So you have to be your own advocate. And even on our website, we have EBV Help, HELP. EBV Help has a page on labs, and I found at least 2 labs that are direct to consumers when you can just click on the buttons, go to those labs, pay maybe $100 or $150, get the right tests. The website has interpretation. The book has interpretation. You have to learn. You have to be the advocate. You'll be independent. And I'm telling you, sometimes I hear people go for years from door to door just looking for a doctor who will agree to test the antibodies.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That's 4, 3, 5 years of your life.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it. So we can speed up the process of, understanding whether you have chronic EBV and whether that's part of your, medical mysteries, and you're not getting better with traditional, even functional medicine therapies.
Yeah. So, I think that's what's so cool about the holistic world and the functional medicine world is, like you're saying, this is like cutting edge stuff. It will eventually get into the doctor's office, I'm sure. But I think that's just so nice. It's like you figure it out. You're seeing it in your clinical practice. You write a book about it. You don't have to wait for all the red tape. You don't have to wait for these national. It's right there, direct to your clients, and you're putting the power to the individual to be their own advocate, which I think is so important. What I'm trying to do with this podcast is to, tell people all of these different things are out there, because you really, at this point in our society, you have to be able to research and know your body and fight for your own information. So I think that's awesome. So ebvhelp.com is your website.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly right. The only reservation when you work alone, you can do everything from the book alone, including the supplement protocols, but with the supplements, it's so complicated and people are so bio-individual.
Yeah.
It would be prudent to work with a functional doctor or a good seasoned clinical nutritionist, really to look at the supplements, the dosages, because it's dose dependent. You have to be really aggressive with this if you want to stall it. So you don't do it for years. So that's the only thing. That was the biggest challenge of writing this book, because I didn't want to hold back, but it's a huge liability and I don't know the person who will be reading it. The supplements make a huge difference, and sometimes they are the needle mover. Like the first needle mover is the right protocol, just honing on it, figuring out what you can tolerate, keeping it within the non-toxic level, not exceeding. So everything is listed in the book. I was trying to be really careful, but because at the point where you have this aggressive virus causing chronic illness, you have to be aggressive with it. Like there's no point of beating around the bushes. Mm-hmm.
So how do we get it? You mentioned that some people can be born with it. So obviously it's like a
umbilical cord. Oh yes, saliva, pacifier. You can't, and young mom, you can't worry about it. Everybody has it. So don't think I'm not going to have it. It's not possible not to have it. Like the research community is looking for a global vaccination to this virus.
Really interesting.
Oh, great, right? But that's because that's what it is. It's been
everywhere.
around. It's been around for a million years. It's way older than we are.
So basically, if most of the population has it, it's only when it becomes activated through epigenetics or no. Okay. So tell me when it becomes a problem. When does it become a problem?
So the activation is periodic. Activation based on circumstances, right? It's like feeding ground. But then much of the life of the virus is dormant and latent, it's called in medical literature. So if you can have a virus and be healthy and live your life, and that's perfect. That's what, it means that the virus is there and sits there and nothing happens. But when you have chronic illness, the virus it leaves your blood after reactivation and travels to tissues, to glands, and implants itself in the cells, usually B cells, your immune cells, T cells sometimes, and completely changes the way they function. They become immortalized. They cannot self-terminate. They cannot work properly. And basically in the dormant phase also, the virus is just waiting for the chance to lyse again, to produce the young viruses inside the cells using your DNA. So the longer it goes on, the more reactivations you can have, the more of this perpetuation happens. But the dormancy is the reason why, the latent state is the reason why it goes chronic. And you can have the chronic fatigue, for example. So it doesn't mean chronic fatigue that you reactivate all the time. You can reactivate and then go latent, reactivate and go latent. And maybe you reactivate once a year, maybe once every half a year, maybe once every week, depending on what's going on. So I would say for me, the difference is, are you living your life? Are you healthy? Are you fine? Do you get sick? Do you have medical diagnosis? And what are they? That's just explains where the virus is. So we don't wait for reactivation necessarily. And what I teach people is how to prevent reactivations in future. And where you have an inkling of it coming, you can pretty much zap it within a number of days if you know what you're doing, and then just stall it, halt it.
Okay, so that's the important question here. Is it manageable or even reversible?
The reversible means you prevent the virus from replication. Can you eradicate it 100% from your body so it doesn't have it? I don't think it's possible. And I don't think it's going to last, because you're going to kiss somebody, you're going to share a glass.
You're going to get it again, yeah.
You're going to have pacifier. Yeah. So
at its root, it's really like an immune system functioning issue, correct?
it's where, yes, it's how the body can handle it, just like any other thing that, you know, we have infections all the time of different bacteria or viruses that we didn't even feel because the immune system took care of it. And unfortunately, it's the immune system cells that are attacked, like B cells, and infected.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you talk a little bit about how EBV specifically hacks your immune system? Because normally it would identify the issue and kill the bad cells, but in the case of EBV, it like tricks your immune system so it doesn't die.
Yes. So the two ways. First of all, the B cells, when they are infected, you know, an infected cell has a system called apoptosis, excuse me, which is self-termination. Like, I am infected, I'm endangered, I'm a danger to other cells, I'm going to self-terminate. This is turned off by the virus. That's why the B cells become immortalized. That's a medical term. You know, they become immortalized. They will not die. They will just be there in perpetuality, and they are like this ticking bomb of factories for the new virus. And when the lysing happens, when the reactivation happens, this is when the virus is very actively reproducing inside those B cells, using your DNA, creating its own RNA, and lysing those B cells and spilling into the blood. And that's where your reactivation is. It's going to be in the blood, and now it's traveling and looking for new cells, new organs. Maybe it's thyroid, maybe it's the brain, maybe it's the connective tissue, you know. And the other way is that the cell, the way the EBV manipulates the infected cell is that the cell can no longer communicate externally to other cells of immune system to come get it and destroy it.
So it's like a blockade there saying, you can't come get me.
Very different signal, yeah.
So smart. It's a very smart virus.
Yeah. And it also hijacks NF-kappa B, which is an inflammatory marker. So if you have a lot of inflammation, inflammatory food, if you have a lot of that NF-kappa B, it literally uses that to replicate and to perpetuate its own species. So therefore, even in the book, I mentioned about very simple ways with foods, herbs, culinary herbs and spices that have been studied to curb NF-kappa B. Something as simple as turmeric or pomegranate, you know, there's lots of things. In actuality, your food choices, hundreds of them are antiviral. It's just when you have a healthy diet and healthy lifestyle, all of this is antiviral.
Right. Yeah.
It's if you have compromised nutritional status, like you don't have good nutrient base, you don't have organics, you have fast food. Number one, you increase your NF-kappa B dramatically. So you're enabling EBV to use that and replicate. And number two, a normally avirulent, not virulent virus becomes more aggressive, more virulent. And so, and I think it may happen, and that's research, I think it may happen because the virus feels threatened, maybe. Just like EMF, I thought that virus was feeding on EMF, and when I'm looking at the way the organisms react to EMF and Wi-Fi technology, they actually feel threatened by it. And so they start really being robust and aggressive in protection. And I think that's probably why when your nutritional status goes down, the virus becomes more aggressive. So especially, and think about what happens when you're in stress, right? Stress is the biggest trigger for EBV. The stress hormones, the adrenaline, the cortisol, it's possible that actually the virus feeds on it. But what happens in stress? You make poorer food choices. That just comes with the territory. So you have more inflammatory foods, chips, or sweets. You have more NF-kappa B. And then you have lower status of your nutrients, antioxidants, vitamins, minerals. And so your nutrient status goes down, so the virus becomes more virulent. And it's like a, double whammy. The antioxidants are what actually keeps us from the virus too, because the virus creates a lot of oxidation, free radical damage. So antioxidants are pretty much one of the foundations of the protocol, the high, high oxidant level in your foods.
I really feel like you cannot stress nutritional status enough. Really with anyone that doesn't want to get sick, but particularly with anyone that struggles with chronic disease, because I think a lot of people just don't understand. We're so immediate focused in our society, like what's happening, like in the next 2 minutes. And we think, well, I'm going to eat this burger. Like you said, I'm stressed out. I'm going to have this splurge. And we think, well, it doesn't affect me in the next 5 minutes, the next 10 minutes, maybe not even in the next week. But in reality, making that choice over and over and over again, not only, there's so many things that happen. Not only are you not getting the nutrients that you need, but the foods that you're eating are causing inflammation, and they're causing issues where you can't then absorb the nutrients that you are getting. And so it's like this circular thing where, like, even if you eat, let's say 50%, you're eating a salad every single day and you're trying to at least get some greens or whatever it is, if you're counteracting that with foods that hinder your absorption, it doesn't really matter. And in the grand scheme of things, what allows your brain to function, your body to function, and your skin and your heart and all these things to work well is all these little vitamins and nutrients and enzymes that click around and work together to make these functions able to work the way they're supposed to work. So that is, like, I think we so underestimate it.
This was food. This is what we ate some time ago. And this became your hair.
Yeah.
This is basically just, we are what we ate. That's what it is.
Yeah. And I think we just don't think about it enough. I think we're like, hey, this tastes good, or it's filling me up, or it's giving me energy, but that we have to go so far beyond that. I encourage my clients to think, okay, if you're looking at two options of meals, you have to look at you have to look at both of them and say, which one is fueling my brain? Which one is giving my cells the nutrients that it needs? So if you're looking at a Pop-Tart versus maybe some pasture-raised eggs and some broccoli, I don't know. I think it's going to be pretty obvious. And then they have that concept of, like, the living food versus the dead food and all the energy and stuff. There's so many things you can go into when you talk about nutrition, but that is so, so important. So when you're talking about EBV, your general approach, obviously nutrition is going to play a big, big part of it. But overall, if you have chronic Epstein-Barr, where it's become an issue for many years and you really struggle with it, and you can identify, I know that I have this and it's coming on. What's your overall process of managing it? Do you do antivirals? Do you do herbs? Do you supplements? Lifestyle? What's sort of your approach?
Well, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a doctor of clinical nutrition, so I cannot do medications. And antiviral medications, statistically in medical literature, they do have efficacy, but it's not very high. And I haven't seen people coming to me and say, I'm on antiviral medication, I'm doing amazing. I just don't say that. They still come and say, I need help. It's just not working. I'm still taking it. Maybe makes a small difference. My approach is to stall the virus from all directions. So even when you open your mouth and drink something, I encourage people we have a long list of herbal teas that are researched to be, botanicals, herbs that you can make into herbal tea, or herbal teas that are readily available that are researched to be antiviral or specifically anti-EBV. So even a hot cup of herbal tea during a meal or between a meal. So every time you open your mouth, you're doing something antiviral specifically. So I'm very strategic because by the time people come to me, they have been at it for years. And we're not going to waste time. So oftentimes, if I can do a complete assessment of a person, I will look through all the supplements that they've been using and see what they already have. And then they customize it, tweak it, and just hone in on what I want. So very high doses of particular nutrient-based supplements. the wonderful thing is, so where natural medicine is going and the therapy for EBV is going among, for example, naturopathic doctors or chiropractors, these therapies are based on herbology and herbs. And I love herbs. I love more of the culinary herbs because I'm a nutritionist. But when I looked at studies, you have to weigh in, like, what is the best foundation? What is the best investment of your money? If you have a little bit of money, you need help with EBV. Would I go into herbs? No. No, because the biggest hitters for EBV that I have found, with the exception of licorice, are nutrient-based. If you have one little thing like selenium, how many jobs can selenium perform? How depleted is the soil of selenium? How hard is it to get selenium in the produce in the levels we had 50 years ago, 100 years ago? How instrumental is selenium for your thyroid? How instrumental is it to make glutathione, the most important antioxidant in the body? How supportive is it of your detoxification in your liver? And then it's a superstar for EBV. So am I going to pick medicinal mushrooms, or am I going to pick selenium? And then you look at lysine, NAC, you look at these, and like I said, licorice is the only herb that I pursue if it's tolerated, if it's appropriate, because if blood pressure is high, we can't really go there. But other than that, I really focus on nutrients because they have such good research reputation for EBV and viruses. It's uncanny. So yeah, so this you can build a protocol that is invincible. And so diet, sleep, stress is huge. Just finding space, time for healing, delegating, finding support. Like, people are too fatigued to cook. Well, get something like Daily Harvest. Let them send you foods.
Yeah, really. Figure out a way to take stress off of yourself.
Yes, exactly. You don't have to be perfect. And then honing on the protocol. So if the supplement protocol doesn't show any improvement within a couple of weeks, then we have to address heavy metals, toxic molds, Wi-Fi technology, co-infections that are very common, and dig around deeper, because these are the things that will make EBV very hard to eradicate. That's kind of the virus is really predictable. It works.
When they, so if a client starts responding to these and they get it, we'll say in remission, so to speak, manageable, no symptoms, they feel better, they kind of then manage it through good nutrition and lifestyle.
Lifestyle, yes.
Yeah, and then so that just becomes like a healthy way of life for them.
Yes.
And then maybe they have like a stressful time. They may bring some of those external supports back in for a period.
Immediately, yes. Okay. And so I call it an acute phase. It's in the book. So you immediately jump in. By that time, you know what acute was for you. For some people cannot take NAC. Some people cannot take lysine. Some people cannot take licorice. But there's so many choices. You just customize it, hone on it, and see what is the highest dose that is safe for you, that you can tolerate. And that is part of the initial recovery. And then once you know what works, you know what works, yes. And you also learn in the process what the most important thing is, to learn what that flagship symptom for you is of EBV. So for example, a lot of people will tell me, yes, there is fatigue, but there is EBV fatigue. Two distinct symptoms.
Yeah.
And people know immediately when they're really tired or when it's tired from EBV. And once I probably have a little herpes virus in my left ear. It's a long story, but for me, when I can see it coming when I have a little bit of a pain in the ear. If I don't take care of it, I'll have bronchitis and so on and so forth, which I don't develop because I drink a lot of aloe and that kills it there. So that's a different story. But so you learn who you are, what the virus does for you, and you learn what the symptoms are. You learn when it comes back. You're going to travel to, let's say, New Zealand. You know you're going to change time zones. You know you're going to go through airport. You know you're going to have a lot of radiation in the plane. You know it can tank you. If you are still compromised, that will crush you. So if you're well enough to go, you know you're going to take your supplements with you, and you know you're going to start an acute dose right away. You will prevent it. You know it's going to be stressful. You're not even just stress supplements like daily B-complex. You're not going to slack on it. You're not going to slack on your antioxidants, your omega-3, maybe vitamin D, multi. You're not. Adaptogenic herbs for stress. You're not, because that's a prime time when you can get reactivated and you don't need it. So that's kind of, I think it's a huge act of self-love working with the BV, because it's your biggest teacher. It teaches you how we live here is now not sustainable for anybody. It's not sustainable how we live, how we eat. I mean, we work more than Japanese people now.
When did that happen?
When did that happen?
No, you're so right. And it's so interesting knowing that I have it now, because I can look back and be like, oh yeah, you're talking about tired versus tired. And I know that travel is a trigger for me for sure.
There we go.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, Paleo FX, like I was still there and I was like, ugh.
I didn't go.
You didn't go. Oh, so
I had the hotel, I had the plane, and I didn't go.
Such a bummer. It was fun.
No, you have to know. You have to know. I mean, I had circumstances that I couldn't go, but it's the circumstance that made me pause. Says, I really shouldn't go. It's too much.
Good for you. Yeah. No, that's absolutely the right decision, I think, because you have to be able to say no to things. That's such an important lesson that we need to, like, nobody likes to do that. I don't like to do it, but sometimes we have to. The other one for me is like stressful events. So if I'm preparing for an event for a long period of time. So I used to be an opera singer. So preparing for things like a concert or recital, I would be good up until, and then crash for days after. I would be so exhausted. And so I'm looking back at these patterns and I'm like, a little bit of triggering going on there, probably, I think.
Oh my gosh, it just gave me chills. That's a lot of pressure. That's unbelievably high pressure. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. It's interesting looking back now that I kind of know what I know. But so you mentioned several triggers. There's mold, there's stress, obviously nutritional deficiencies, things like that. You've mentioned EMF. So how much does that play as a stressor in our common world today?
It's huge because we are inundated. We have so much Wi-Fi within the household and also externally. I know in Europe there are schools now. I think in Belgium they started to open schools without Wi-Fi.
Wow, really?
Children can have space. Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes, we're blasted with it really bad. And the Wi-Fi, the routers are very powerful. They make them more and more powerful, that's in your household. And smart meters, that's a huge issue. And sometimes people don't know that they have them. They literally don't know. That's pulsating 24/7. Alexa, I had a case when a dog was changing behavior because of Alexa. It was disruptive, and then it would run away from the room. And then the patient couldn't sleep well. So she was improving. Everything was great, but there's something in there. And finally, we figured out, she never told me she had Alexa. We turned it off. It has a very strong emission. Baby monitors. Wi-Fi basically is very strong. It disrupts the cell function. It goes through you. So a lot of people, like I remember a woman who she was living in Japan at the time, and she would tell me she had anxiety almost attacks. She couldn't stay in the shopping mall for too long. She was so sensitive to all the energies from there. And when we created a space for the body to actually ward off the virus, be strong and kind of invincible to the virus, she was able to walk in and function. There's something you don't control. It's an environment that is not yours. You can walk in and walk out, right? But she is able to be social and go there when she needs to and leave and not really talk.
Mm.
And before it was a problem. So I think really the problem is that we are an electrical beings, and we have spiritual beings, and the physicality of Wi-Fi is a big experiment. It hasn't really been tested in a way that would show sustainable usage being safe. We don't have that track record.
Mm.
So, and it's only getting worse. There's more gadgets. There's look, this phone requires me to put this additional thing in order to have my earpiece.
Right.
This is very easy to lose. So the company is telling you, just use your ear. Right? Very dangerous. So I have to make sure I don't lose this, because I don't use this by my ear. I only use these, and these are low EMF as well. So this is where technology is going. It's going in the wrong direction, and it doesn't provide any safety whatsoever for consumers. We have to be just smart and anticipated and just ward ourselves off. That's the industry for you.
We have our Wi-Fi set to a timer so that it shuts off while we're sleeping. So that's one thing that people can do. You can absolutely use your Wi-Fi during the day, but how do you feel about EMF blockers on phones, on laptops and things? Do you feel like they are helpful?
Some of them are helpful. I have a colleague who remediates EMF, so she has tools measuring meters, and she goes into households and looks for things. She told me a story when there was a boy who couldn't sleep, had insomnia, had anxiety attacks, and when she entered her room with her little device, there was this Wi-Fi toy. It was emitting so colossal levels of Wi-Fi. They turned it off. He was normal. There's a lot of interference with the brain as well. It's pretty underappreciated, and we're stewed in it. We are stewed in it. We really are stewing in it.
Wow.
I mean, I drive with my husband, and I look at a big antenna with Wi-Fi, big antennas, and I see houses, residential houses right around it, and I'm just wondering what kind of chronic illnesses do these people have if they live there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's absolutely chronic illness in general is on the rise. And what's really interesting to me is a lot of the approaches in the functional community, they cover almost all of them in terms of what we can do to manage the symptoms. We're talking about stress, we're talking about nutrition, we're talking about lifestyle, we're talking about EMF. Those are good for literally any condition you have, right? It's the same, you just tweak it a little bit for the individual. But these are all things that everyone should incorporate, really. And that's one of the things. So let's talk about, so what can someone do if they think they have it? Number one, they need to go to your website, ebvhelp.com. Number two, they need to get the Epstein-Barr virus solution book and read through it, because I'm still not through it. It's amazing. It's packed, it's chock full of amazing information. And the thing is, it's researched. So it's got the science behind it. It has the information. Number three, on the website, you can get the test. So I did get the test.
Life extension. How much did you pay? 100?
Yeah, it was like 125, 150.
Yeah,
not bad.
That's not bad. That's a good price. Yeah.
Yeah, not bad at all. So let's talk about the test really quickly. I think we have a few more minutes, if that's okay. What the markers are, if you can explain what they mean really quickly. Because I think they're not the same on everyone. So EBV, acute infection antibodies. So that obviously screens for EBV antibodies, and that would tell you if it's activated at this time. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, you want to test for antibodies. That's typically a whole panel. And the antibodies are a little tricky. That's why I have a whole website page on it with different scenarios. And some people don't make antibodies to particular ones, and it can be a little tricky. But majority of people, it's pretty predictable. So there's VCA IgG and EBNA IgG. Those are for life. Most people may have them. If you have them elevated, it may not mean that you have a chronic condition. of EBV, you may be just perfectly fine. They will never probably go to zero. It's not possible because you're kind of tainted. You have that memory of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you do things right, they will start decreasing. The worst thing is that sometimes if the levels are very high, the lab only goes to a certain number, let's say 600. And if it's higher than 600, your lab report will say more than 600. And so as you're repairing, as you're feeling better, as you're living your life and you retest, some people get really demoralized because this still shows more than 600. And it's like, well, it's not working. I feel good, but the lab doesn't.
Oh, but you don't know if it came down.
You don't know. It might be 2,000 and now it's 650. So you have to, keep that in mind and go by symptoms, by how you feel, and not just the labs. So these two should be dropping, but oftentimes they are at triple digits. So if they just drop those triple digits, even within triple digits, that's just the direction is important, that you're doing something to decrease them. And then you have IgM, VCA, IgM. This is typically negative. This IgM, VCA typically only flags up when it's the first initial infection. A handful of cases I've seen, very rare, is when every time you reactivate, it comes back. There's a little bump, so it's going to increase a little bit, but oftentimes not enough to show positive in the labs. So I don't see that. So this indicates more chronic aspect of it if it's normal. So I'm never surprised if it's normal. I kind of accept that it will be. If it's a child and it's elevated, I will say maybe it is the first infection.
Mm-hmm.
And then the biggest one and most important one, and this is the one that doctors misinterpret or do not test, is early antigen, EA, IgG. Early antigen will flag up with reactivations.
Mm-hmm. So I had the early antigen was high, the IgG was high, and the nuclear antigen, or the VCA and the nuclear antigen, all three of them were high.
Yes, and the VCA IgM was normal.
It was normal, yeah.
Yes, that's typical scenario for chronic EBV, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I got this and I was so pissed. I was like, why? Why didn't I know about this like 6 years ago?
No, you couldn't. It wasn't there.
Yeah.
I didn't know it 6 years ago. And that's the journey you have to walk so you can pass it on to thousands and thousands of people that you can touch.
Yeah. Well, and the more I'm reading through the book and the more I'm learning about it, I'm like, man, this is absolutely a test that I need to recommend to more of my clients. Absolutely. It seems to be an underlying concern that we need to manage more frequently, for sure. It is so incredible to learn everything that you have put in here. It's literally blowing my mind, Kasia. It's literally blowing my mind.
Oh, you just made my day. This is wonderful.
I love it.
You can spread it to so many people. You can make change in so many people's lives just by having this conversation with me. I can't be happier. We're just spreading this.
I know it's perfect. What what would be maybe the first sign that you would think, okay, somebody needs to get this test? If they're listening today and they're like, yeah, is this something I should maybe test or not? What would you say would trigger you should go check this out?
If it starts to affect your life to the point where you have your dream job, but you are so exhausted after you come home and you're struggling to keep up. You are a young mom and you look at your child and you say, I just cannot keep up with her. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm such a bad mom. I just can't cook, and I'm too tired. So, just being tired, having those thoughts. Mm-hmm. This is not normal.
Again, you're totally describing the past how many years of my life. I was like, why am I tired? I'm doing all the right things. I'm healing this. I'm improving this. And fatigue would just keep coming back and coming back and coming back and coming back. And it was so frustrating because I was like, this is not normal. And I would feel bad about myself.
No, and don't feel bad about yourself. Yeah. No. So the biggest message, that's a very good point. So the biggest message to share for me now is at this point is there's nothing wrong with you. Your body is the best friend. Your body is the best ally. Your body has been trying to keep you alive all these years.
Yes.
Trying to figure it out, how to compensate for this oxidative stress, how to compensate for this virus, how to fight it. that's what your body does. It just never turns against you. So that's where people get really anxious, really scared, because they don't know what's next that's going to hit them. Next diagnosis, next autoimmune diagnosis, my next symptom, what is it going to be? Mm-hmm. Your body is not doing it. Your body is fighting with you always.
Yeah. I love that. And it's so important to realize your body is on your side, and anything that's going on is just trying to communicate to you so that you can get the answers sooner so that you can help it out.
That's exactly, yes.
What it's trying to do. It's trying to say,
that's really what it is.
Let's work together is what it's trying to say.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah. All right. So make sure you check out Kasia's website, ebvhelp.com. Definitely get her book, The Epstein-Barr Virus Solution. And then Kasia, is there any other place, social media, where people can connect with you and kind of follow you and what you're doing?
Well, Dr. Kasia Kines, Holistic Nutrition Naturally Facebook group. That's a professional Facebook group. Okay. My name, Kasia Kines Facebook group. I no longer accept people because it's a private one, but people have been storming there, so it's hard for them to find me in the other one. There is a community for EBV. I don't think that you necessarily have to go there, since we have the website, we have the book. There's so many resources, but the be careful with the Facebook community groups. They're wonderful, but they can be depressing, and people are really sick, and you just don't want to be in that space too much. You want to be in the healing space and hope space. And I think that the book brings that hope, the understanding. So I think the website is probably the best. The website, we try to put everything in the website. So the labs, the programs we have, the support. The only thing I haven't had time is the food page on the website. I just ran out of time. I forgot to build it.
That's okay. It's in the book, right? They need to get the book anyway. Yeah.
It's in the book. Yes. It's in the book.
Yeah. And you have a class that people can take online as well.
Yes. And we have links on the website as well. It's EBV Recovery Masterclass, but it's the clinician program also is on that website. There is a page for clinicians. And if people want to work, they can work with me, but there's also, how many do I have certified? 2 clinicians that I certified. So they know what to do with EBV. They're on that website too. So you can reach out to them. One is in Sydney and one is in LA. Awesome. We're going to certify more. It just takes some time. So we're building an army and we're spreading the word. And with your help, we're going to help more people. So
I love it.
It's a good day.
That's amazing. Kasia, thank you so much for being here and just for your heart to share this information with everyone, to get it out there. And for not holding back. You want to help people heal. And thank you so much for being here and talking about it. I really appreciate it.
I'm honored. Thank you so much for having me.